from Herbie Herbert, from the 1978 Journey Tour. How much did those sell for? And so you kind of start looking at that. And then what we do is, and this is how it usually works in the auction circles, is you take the fair market value and then the opening bid price is set substantially lower because you want people to get excited, but you also want people to say, hey, at that price level, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. So let's say you have, an itinerary that you think, fair value for that itinerary is $100 to $150. Mm-hmm. Let's start the bidding at 50, something like that.
Right.
Or,
okay.
you got a vintage T-shirt. Van Halen T-shirts from the late 70s or early 80s traditionally tend to sell for between $100 and $200 a piece. We will start the bidding for most of the T-shirts in the $50 range. And so there definitely is some thought that goes into this. It's not like we just grab it out of thin air, but at the same time, it's not a science either, because there's no existing data for something like this.
You don't have like eBay does a buy it now thing, right? It's all about the auction.
It is all about the auction.
Right. Okay.
The reason why you want to do an auction instead of a buy it now is the material is so unique. And for a very large degree, most of these items are truly one of a kind.
Right.
And
that's true.
This is the kind of material that if you don't get it now, you will never, ever get it again.
Right.
And so with that notion, I'm already humbled enough that Noel, has agreed to do this and say, I'm going to share all of this stuff that I, kept in my possession for, 40 years. But you want it to be as fair as possible. You want as many people as possible to look at this and to have a shot at it.
Right.
And the whole buy it now concept just doesn't fit, because then it really becomes first come, first serve, or, whoever happens to have, more money at that moment than somebody else. And, and we don't want to do that. We really just want to, make it an event and make people talk about it, and, and for people to also enjoy the catalog, and I always say, obviously, we want for all of these pieces to go to a new home.
Right.
And, you want all of these little bits of history to be preserved, and there is no better audience to preserve this than, the loyal Van Halen fans and the loyal Van Halen collectors. But I also realize that, for some people, some of these pieces may be out of their reach, or, eventually they'll be out of their reach because of the bidding on it. But that shouldn't stop them from still enjoying the auction, meaning just go to the website and look at all these pieces, look at the photos, read the descriptions, and you're bound to find, even if you are the most dedicated Van Halen, connoisseur, you're still going to see a ton of stuff that you say, I didn't even know that existed.
Right.
I've never heard of this.
Right.
I mean, one of the lots is from the 1970, and I'm probably saying this wrong because I can't remember whether it's 78 or 79, the California Festival.
Yeah.
We found literally an entire folder of, let's say, documentation, contracts, paperwork pertaining just to that one festival. And that was the infamous festival where Van Halen, they rented 20 pink limousines, and they had a little chimpanzee, dressed up, like David Lee Roth, and the monkey was, prancing backstage, and those stories are out there. People know these stories.
That's true.
But like what we have and what we found are, for instance, the original vendor contracts for the renting of the monkey. And the transportation of the Sherman tank, and the lease agreement for the pink limousines. And, so to me, it's like, even if you can buy it, you can still see that stuff. And and go like, oh my God, this is so great. Of course, we'd love for, as I said, for everyone to own everything, but that's not possible.
Right.
But it shouldn't stop you from, at a minimum, just enjoying it,
Right.
and that's what I, also hope to achieve as an auctioneer, is that you put together an event that, in the first place is positively embraced, by the community, that people say, whether I end up owning this stuff or not, or whether I have a personal opinion that, $50 for this or $100 for that, or even $1,000 for a particular item is too much or not. I always say, don't get carried away by that. Just appreciate the fact that there's somebody who was for, basically almost 7 years on a daily basis part of this whole phenomena.
Right.
And that person is literally taking everything out of the closet and say, here it is.
Right. Right.
And that is unique. The flip side of it is that, Noel could have also been, and fortunately for all of us, he's not, but he could have also been that kind of guy that says, nobody gives a crap about this stuff. I'm going to throw it away.
Right.
Or I'm just going to let it sit, in boxes till I die. And I don't care what happens with it after that.
Right.
Which we all know happens. There's so much pieces of history that just disappear in a black hole.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Noel had the foresight for that not to happen. He decided to hang on to it, to find the right time, and to now say, you know what? I'm going to make this a public thing. Come get it. And I think that's awesome.
Do you have anything off the top of your head? You've been doing this a long time. What are going to be the hot items?
Well, there's obvious pieces, obvious pieces such as the record awards.
Right.
I mean, how can you not want to have, the record awards issued to Noel Monk, etc. These are all the original first generation record awards.
Sure.
I expect people to get excited about the autographed pieces. We have a lot of signed stuff, signed Christmas cards, signed contracts.
Right.
And again, these are all historic documents. There's a couple other, what I think are obvious pieces. I mentioned David Lee Roth's passport, but we also have photo ID backstage passes for David Lee Roth in the auction. We have all of Noel's photo ID backstage passes. Right. We have literally every single original itinerary starting with the very first tour in 1978.
That's amazing.
Including separate binders almost for their first European tour, with Black Sabbath.
Absolutely.
Or the first 10-day or 12-day tour of Japan. So I think that those are, in my mind, among the many, but because there's so many obvious ones. But I think that, each lot is special. It really is. To me, there literally are no lots in there that you go like, meh, it's kind of like, they're all special. But, the ones that I personally like a lot, is... again, the Van Halen community is obviously very aware of, that Helmut Newton did this famous photo shoot. Well, Helmut Newton is mainly known from his, model photography. He didn't really do rock stars or, band photos. If you do a search and you try and find an original, I'm not talking about a reproduction, I'm talking about an original Helmut Newton photo,
right?
Especially a large one, let's say 16 by 20. You will not find a photo from Helmut Newton from that era, that size, for, let's say, less than $5,000.
Wow.
We have about a dozen outtake photos, 16 by 20, that nobody's ever seen before. Beautiful condition, and we're not going to sell them for that kind of money, by the way.
Right.
But it's like, to me, that just blows my mind.
Stuff that is
like
amazing. That is amazing.
There are so many original photos, and there's also original film material. I mean, like negatives and slides. Literally from in-store appearances or concerts, or just photos that Noel took while being on the road, or outtake photos from photo sessions, for, let's say, the second album or the third album.
Right.
I'm very partial to the paper stuff. I've always loved paper.
Right.
For instance, there are equipment manifests, and you should just take a second to let that sink in. If you're a Van Halen fan, you really want to know exactly what all was part of their inventory. Well, these equipment manifests literally list every guitar, every bass guitar, every part of the drums, every road case, every cabinet, every amplifier, including all the serial numbers for all these pieces. That alone, just that document, that's got to be a holy grail piece to people that really are into Van Halen use gear and equipment.
Sure.
And there's also the wedding invitation to Eddie and Valerie's wedding party.
Sure.
And there's so much. Yes, I expect there to be a lot of interest for the usual suspects, but I also say that, every lot is a little gem in and of itself. And
sure.
There's people out there that collect, vintage Van Halen T-shirts or jackets. I think they'll be blown away.
Oh, yeah.
These are all of Noel's personal jackets. These are tour jackets. There may only be, 10 or 20 of those, and these are all monogrammed or embroidered with his name on it. And most of the T-shirts are shirts issued by promoters or by vendors. So these are not your standard concert shirts. So, but here's another one. I mean, I can go on and on, but there's a prototype pin and a prototype necklace. But what we also found, and that's also going to be in the auction, is they actually decided, the band, to make a ring out of the Van Halen logo.
Right.
These rings were made, out of 24 karat gold, and there was only a very small group of people that have a Van Halen ring. Well, we don't have the ring, but we have the original molds to make the ring. It's like, wow. Can you imagine having the mold to make the Van Halen rings?
That's incredible.
And
That's
I know,
incredible.
it just blows your mind just thinking about it.
Yeah, and what kind of condition did you find all this stuff in?
Excellent condition. It's amazing to me that, you fast forward, 35 to 40 years, and all of this is in such great shape. There's a couple pieces that may be a little bit weathered or a little bit rough, but that's because they were used.
Right.
Itineraries, for instance, and Noel is notorious for writing everything down, which makes it, in my opinion, even better.
Right.
But like most of these itineraries, they were taken on the road. These itineraries went all across the country, all across the world. They have dog ears and they have, creases, and literally every page, there's tons of handwriting on it. But to me, it's like, that's the greatest thing ever.
Absolutely.
You don't want that stuff to be brand new.
No, of course not.
But then on the flip side, the things that you want to be in real good condition are in good condition. The shirts and the jackets are phenomenal.
Wow.
The jewelry or the backstage passes or, all of that stuff, all the paperwork has been preserved so incredibly well.
Wow, that's amazing.
That, again, the condition really surprised me pleasantly because I don't often see a collection offered in such fine condition as this one.
Sure. Now, what happens to the stuff if it doesn't sell? What happens to it?
Okay, so if there are items that end up not selling, and that can always happen, what we do is we usually hold it back for a little bit. What we do is we first focus, once the auction is over, getting all the invoices out, collecting payments, from all the buyers, shipping out, all the orders. And that's usually a cycle that can take up to 4 weeks, for everything to be fully processed.
Right.
Then what we do is once that cycle is completed, we're going to put together a list of all the items that didn't sell in the auction. And we usually give buyers a first shot at it. So let's say there's 200 unique buyers. So there's 200 people that will get an email from us and say, hey, there's a couple items left. Here's the list, or we usually upload them and we create a link and we send them, the link. And it literally will be first come, first serve. And we usually do that for a couple of days up to maybe a week. Once that group of people had a first shot at buying whatever didn't sell, then if there are still things left over, then we have an online store on our website. And then these items will be placed in the store. And then we just do an announcement, just a database-wide announcement, so everybody will know about it and say, hey, there's still some great Van Halen memorabilia